What's up, metal and heavy music fans? Today we are talking about the new Suicide Silence track, Thinking in Tongues. So I had really low hopes going into this song, considering that Become the Hunter was, at least in my opinion, one of the most forgettable, generic deathcore albums of the past few years.
It stinks. It stinks.
But actually, I listened to the Spotify version before the video premiered, and I gotta say, I definitely did a double take to make sure I played the right song. This easily could have come off one of Suicide Silence's first albums, even drawing some pretty direct comparisons to the legendary The Cleansing, which, like Bandit here, is actually getting pretty old. Believe it or not, it's turning 15 and will be re-released on June 24th via Century Media's Ultimate Edition. And notably, this will also be the last recording with longtime drummer Alex Lopez. After some eerie opening static and ambience, Alex kicks things off with an awesome drum fill, taking us into a torrent of alternating chugs and earworm descending picking patterns. These, along with a vocal performance seemingly directly channeling Mitch to an almost disturbing degree, take me back to the 2000s when I was first exposed to this type of music. I'll be honest and say I've never been fully sold with Eddie fronting the band in the old style, but he's in rare form on this one with both larynx shredding highs and brutal lows, and sometimes layered back to back to stunningly gruesome effect. At this point though, we move into the main hook with more chaotic tremolo and groovy palm-muted chugs periodically breaking for the simple but effective two-word gang vocals. This is such a basic thing, but it's that simplicity that made tracks like No Pity for a Coward, Wake Up, Unanswered, and You Only Live Once such long-standing classics. Fans love something that they can scream along to and feel like they're almost part of the band in a live experience, and Think Again may be poised to enter the same pantheon as Where Is Your God and Pull the Trigger Bitch. Maybe comment your favorite Suicide Silence vocal hook down below. This section also perfectly devolving even further into the hypnotic headbanging groove before the blasting of the snare takes us back into the chaos. These sudden shifts in pacing are meant to illustrate the chaotic feeling of... Alright, I think Bandit's had enough. These sudden shifts in pacing are meant to illustrate the chaotic feeling of losing one's mind, according to the band, which I suppose is either highly appropriate or inappropriate for Mental Health Awareness Month, depending on how you look at it. Around 55 seconds, we get another shift into more ominous tremolo lines, brutal death growls, and pummeling blast beats going into the breakdown, once more delivering easy-to-remember tough guy vocal lines that are sure to be crowd pleasers. It's pretty much rinse and repeat at this point, but to the perfect effect for what it's going for, and at just over 3.5 minutes, it doesn't overstay its welcome. The last nice little addition towards the end is the extra crunchy bass and guitar slides that kick in around 2 minutes and 36 seconds to further escalate the final beatdown, featuring a pretty delightful blech as well. So while Thinking in Tongues is by no means some new revelation, it definitely managed to surprise me. Like I said, I feel like Suicide Silence have been becoming increasingly irrelevant over the past decade or so, and I never expected them to conjure their previous fury ever again. The genre has largely just moved on without them, with even their peers Whitechapel evolving into something different entirely. Honestly, despite all the hate for the self-titled album, at least there was something interesting and memorable to talk about there when compared to the paint-by-numbers of Become the Hunter. But that said, if they can really bring the heat, it might be the right time for someone to drop an album that calls back to the glory days. I'm skeptical as to whether they could hold attention with an entire album in this style given the current landscape, but I'm always willing to keep an open mind. Turning to my scales, I give Thinking in Tongues a 9 for enjoyability, definitely catchy, straight to the point, and does what deathcore does best in getting me banging my head and screaming along. I give it a 9 for musicianship. It's a very well written track, and despite the deceptively caveman intensity intensity also has some pretty technical performances from the drums and guitars that are likely to spawn some cover videos. And I give it a 7 for innovation. No bells and whistles here, but by its very nature, that's really the exact opposite of what it's going for. This seems to be very much just a celebration of where the band has come from, and in that it succeeds 100%. So overall an 8.3 and a B for Thinking in Tongues. Check out this video to hear more about classic deathcore albums with Within Destruction's Howard Fang, but that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.